Hey everybody and welcome. This is Steve Hess, Director of User Experience at OpenBOM. I see some people are still joining. Just give a few seconds for a few people to arrive. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, again, thanks for joining today. My name is Steve Hess, Director of User Experience. I'd like to welcome you to, I guess, the 28th webinar this year, OpenBOM. The topic for today is OpenBOM for Autodesk Inventor. We'll be covering some basics to advanced. And essentially we'll be going from design to purchase order and everything in between. So I want to go ahead and get started. I'll take care of a few basics here. First, everybody is muted. There is a chat button over on the right side of your GoToWebinar screen. You can go ahead and jump in there if you want to and key in any questions that you might have. I'm going to record this, we'll publish a video at the end. I'll share the slide deck as well. And this time around, I'm going to try to share the data set. I mean, this webinar is going to be a little bit unusual that we're going to do everything going to be live. So I'll explain that here in just a moment. So, okay. Here's some definitions. I'm not going to spend any time on these. This is in here in the slide deck if you need to understand what the bills of materials and vendor lists and order BOMs and things are. Okay, here, let's cover a few basics first. OpenBOM requires the installation of an add-in in Inventor. There's a 3-minute video right here on how to do that. BOMs are created from Inventor assemblies only. We use another command called OpenBOM save item command to save parts and individual items into OpenBOM. The add-in does require an OpenBOM license, either a trial, a free trial, or professional user and above. You can get more information on those at openbom.com. I encourage everyone to activate their free trial and give this a try. Or of course, you can be a member of a team or a company and your administrator will add you. We do like to have Inventor 2016 or later. Prior to that, there might be some unexpected behavior, and there's a few things here that we're not going to cover. So, like I said about this particular webinar, I'd planned last night to prepare some things and have all this stuff ready to go. But after doing some work, I just decided that we're going to make some real BOMs or real purchase orders, and we're just going to do it live. So that's how we're going to cover it today. If you have any questions, we don't cover anything that you were expecting us to cover, please send an email to support@openbom.com. We answer every message. Okay, there's our 6 lessons for today that we're going to cover. And I'm going to go through them in a little bit of an outline here. We're going to go through some of the basics and then of settings. We're going to make a BOM of a bicycle front fork, and we're going to make a change. We're going to do an update. We're going to reorganize it. In other words, we're going to put all the screws into a hardware category and catalog. We're going to assign some costs, roll up some subassembly costs. So we're just going to roll up the costs of some parts up to calculate the cost of subassembly. Deal with vendors and planning, and in the end, we're going to create some POs, some purchase orders. And then finally, we're going to circle back, and I'd like to show you how you make a template in OpenBOM so that your future BOMs all look like how you want them to. If we don't have time for that, there's a link to a video on that right there. So that's sort of my ambition. I'm going to keep this to 20 to 30 minutes or less, and so I'm going to be really sensitive of the time. So I've included slides on each one of the lessons, sort of step by step. My intention is to try to stick to those. They're included mostly so that you can follow along later, or either now or later on, and have kind of a written list of what the steps are that we're going to go through. So I'm going to start right now. I don't see I don't see any comments or questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started by jumping right over into Inventor. This is lesson number 1, just kind of getting the lay of the land, dealing with some settings. The Inventor, I've installed the OpenBOM for Inventor add-in, and I get this menu up here. This menu or one similar to it appears in assemblies and parts in Inventor. First thing we want to do is visit the OpenBOM settings dialog and just sign in. We're going to provide our username and our password. The default catalog will be Inventor items, and right now we're not going to deal with template. Hopefully we'll come back to that at the end here. And so I sign in, really no other changes, and I click OK. The other thing that you need to do, and this is very important in Inventor, is visit the Inventor Bill of Materials dialog. This is important for one particular reason, is that I'm going to right mouse right here on this structured menu, and I'm going to say enable BOM view. And in many cases, it's set to disable. Make sure that that is set to enable. If you don't do that, you get unpredictable results. OpenBOM uses this bill of material view inside of Inventor for a lot of things. We're going to cover a lot of that now, but we get, for example, we get part numbers, we get descriptions, we get what bits and pieces are in the assembly. We get that from this BOM view, so make sure that structured is enabled. Okay, so we're going to come back to kind of dealing with that data in there specifically, and I'm going to click on some locate right here to make sure that we understand that I don't currently have any BOMs or anything built for these parts. This locate button will bring you any bills of material that currently exist in OpenBOM for those parts. So that gets us through lesson number 1. Visit the settings here and the bill of materials setting in Inventor, very important. So lesson number 2, we are going to create a bill of material for this bike fork. We're going to do that using the BOM command. So I want to encourage everybody to read these dialogues. I know they're easy to click continue, but this is telling me that, hey, I'm going to use a default catalog here called Inventor items, and I'm going to build a multi-level BOM, because we have multi-level setup here, for the bike fork. Okay, let's do that. I work almost exclusively in multi-level. There's reasons for parts lists and single level and things, but I find multi-level to be the most versatile. So, okay, let's go ahead and open our bike fork bill of material. And let's just take a peek and see what we've got and where it came from. So this is looking pretty good. I opened it up in multi-level. Yeah, there's some other options there, so always make sure you're in multi-level. And I got, all the parts and descriptions that are in my BOM. This item over here is quantity on hand. This is what we're going to use in a moment for managing our inventory. So we're gonna come back to that. Okay, I also see that my bill of material structure was brought in. I like this bill of material, this design. It's simple, but there's 2 sort of spring assemblies in here called elastomers, and they have parts underneath them, and then we have quantity of 2 of those. So it makes for some nice calculations. And there's some hardware and other things in here. So while this may seem like a simple assembly, it's actually nicely representative of what we might get in a bill of material. Okay, so there's a couple of things that I see that I really meant to include. And as I kind of go down the list here, I see there's a couple of pieces here that don't have a description, like these fork pistons and fork tubes. And I meant to bring in the revision property from my Inventor design. So let's go back to the bill of materials dialog and see how we do that. First of all, right here, this is pretty simple. I'm just going to go over here and see that I'm just going to give these a description. And I won't do them all, but I'll leave those up to you. You can add some things there. And then how do I add revision? I want to bring revision over to OpenBOM. Well, up here, there's a little button here that says choose columns. And I get this little piece of UI here. And I come down to revision and I press and hold and I drag and drop that up here. So it's very important that when I add a property into this table that there be at least one item, one part that has a value. because if we have, we'll see a bit later on, there's a lot of properties inside Inventor. And what we try to do is only bring the ones, at least the top level BOM, that have values. So I've gone back to Inventor, I picked up my revision, I added a little more information, and heck, let's just finish this out here. And I made a few changes there, and let's click the BOM button, and let's update our bill of material. Okay, so OpenBOM is dropping through it again. You see some messages down here, and then we're going to kind of return back here and reload this in the browser. And we see the revision came through. I got my revision data, all those pieces before that didn't have any descriptions. Now we got descriptions. So, you know, for many of us, I'll tell you what, that right there is a great, you know, place, you know, to stop, and we can, you know, go on and build orders and purchase orders and things like that. But for me and my company, we do a little more of a little more organization. And that leads us to lesson number 3, which is how do we keep something like hardware in its own catalog? And it's easier sometimes for pricing and reuse and other things, and just organizational purposes to have a single category or catalog for hardware. So to do that, we need to kind of take a little bit deeper dive and see what's going on. So let's go down to our BOM and find a couple of these pieces. I'm gonna highlight one of those screws. I'm gonna use the item information button up here. I'm gonna see that is going into, along with this one, those are going into my regular default catalog Inventor items. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that, and we're gonna take a little closer look at what's going on in Inventor items. Okay, we can see that, yeah, okay, so these 2 pieces right now exist in Inventor items. Well, what I'm gonna do here is I'm just going to delete those from my Inventor items catalog. And I'm gonna go to my dashboard. I'm gonna create a new catalog using the create catalog button there. I'm gonna create a catalog called hardware. Okay. OpenBOM kind of gives me a blank template. And I'm gonna return back to Inventor and open up those 2 pieces and send them to the hardware catalog. Now I've prepared a little bit here. I've got these 2 guys open. So I'm gonna jump over to this screw, and you see this is a part, so we see a little different menu up here. But I'm gonna pick up save item, and I'm going to say, look, add this to, and I'm gonna choose the hardware catalog, and I'm gonna send that out to the hardware catalog. Okay. So OpenBOM is doing that. Now I know I've got another one here that I want to do, so let's just go ahead and do the same thing. And I'm going to send that over to the hardware catalog. Okay. Done. So let's go back to our hardware catalog. I could have clicked the link, but I'm just refreshing the open tab here. And we see that that there's now a lot of information. This is what I was talking about with Inventor bringing in a lot of data. This was the point last night when I was kind of working this out, and I was saying, this is real data. I really want to show you what kind of happens in real life when you're bringing in legacy data from a CAD system of any type. So what I've got here is a lot of information, some of which I don't need, and then some more information that I just want to make sure that I remove. I want to show you why in a moment. I'm going to turn on the text wrap, and I see that there's some properties that were defined by someone that just don't make any sense. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that kind of goofy property. I'm going to scroll down here. There's another one here. Category's got some crazy information in it that's coming from that. I'm going to remove that. That doesn't make any sense to me either. And I think there's some other things that external part revision. I don't really know what that is, but I see that it has some some data in it that I'm probably not interested in. So I can take a moment and kind of clean some of this up. Sometimes it makes the downstream bills of material a little more viewable if I don't have those long data in there that I don't need. But I'm gonna leave that to you. I'm gonna pull this last material identifier out of here as well. I know that's also a long string, and I can decide in the future how I wanna, how I wanna do those. And if I happen to end up with any empty rows, I'm gonna clean that up too. So now I've taken just a minute and spent a little time in my new hardware catalog. It's a great time to say, hey, but the price of that screw is 17 and the price here is, is 19, and I've got, 25 of those and 125 of those on hand. So I've done a little cleanup there, on hardware, and I wanted to kind of revisit my Inventor items catalog and do the same thing. I see that I've got some information here, but I know I want to keep track of the cost on these. So I'm going to go ahead and add the cost property into my catalog. And like I did with the other one, I'm going to define a cost. Now I'm not going to go through each one of these. I'm just going to use our ribbon button to say, look, each one of these for right now is $1, but you probably want to spend some more time on that. And I know that on my assembly, while I can go ahead and put a price in here if I want, I'm going to calculate that in real time, and we'll see how that works in just a second. So I've got some work that I've done here. Let's take a look at that. And I know that I'm also going to be managing quantity on hands, and I'm going to use another feature here of OpenBOM and say, look, I'm just going to automatically fill that. And again, this is just for demonstration purposes, but I'm going to start with 10 and automatically fill that column. So I've got quantity on hand and cost defined, and you'd want to obviously spend time to put your own values in there. So I kind of went offline just a little bit here. I spent some time on catalogs, doing a little bit of work, getting my costs and quantity on hands in there, and this is good. My foundational elements now, both my catalogs are exactly how I want, and I want to go ahead and jump to the next lesson right now, which is kind of managing some costs of roll-ups and vendors, in the BOM. So let's revisit our bill of material, and we can see that those costs and everything have come through. I noticed that my 2 screws are now in a different catalog. I want to go ahead and assign that catalog, and we'll see that all that information now has come in, quantity on hand, costs, all the work that we did there, that's all coming together. Okay. All right, so this is a good place to think about, okay, I've got a bill of material. It's starting to look pretty good. What do I need to do now to start thinking about how I buy this? I'm going to be thinking about costs and maybe rolling up, calculating some of the costs for the assemblies in here. What do I need to do? Well, first of all, let's think about within OpenBOM what we're going to do. What does our vendor list look like? So I have defined ahead of time a set of vendors. This is also available in the demo data that just came out in this release. But let's take a look at our vendor list. Vendor list is very simple. It is a list of vendors, phone numbers, maybe a vendor number, contact information. This is all configurable by you. You can extend this with whatever information you want. What I'm mostly interested in here is that I have a nice set of vendors. Okay, so those exist. What's the next thing that I'm going to need to do here in my Bike Fork catalog? Well, I want to think about kind of doing some calculations around the subassembly, rolling up those subassembly costs. So right now, I know that I'm bringing in $1 for this subassembly, but when we look a little closer at it, we notice that there's all of the parts below it also have their own pricing, and I want to have OpenBOM calculate that value, for me. So how do we do that? Well, we start by adding one property up at the top level BOM called extended cost. This could be extended price or some other thing. I like extended cost, so I'm going to add that to all the subassemblies. There's plenty of videos in our help on how to do this in more detail. Next, we're going to define extended cost with a formula. We're going to say extended cost is going to be equal to cost times quantity. Terrific. And I want to apply this as a multi-level roll-up, and we always choose quantity here. So watch what happens. Okay, OpenBOM now has gone through and done some calculations. I wanted to point you out to this subassembly right here, we're bringing up the subassembly cost is $15. There happens to be 2 of them. So the extended cost is 30. And what I'd like you to notice here in particular is that the parts that are in this subassembly, their costs are right here, and their extended costs are here, and they roll up to that $15. So this is where we're doing the math for you. Virtually impossible to do this in Excel or a spreadsheet. We compute the extended cost for each item, multiply it by the quantity, roll it up to the individual cost of the assembly, and then multiply that by the number of assemblies in the top level BOM. So this is also a good time to kind of flip on totals. I can see that my total cost right now, I'm at $42. Yeah, you know, that feels about right. So before I can take some orders from this, I'm going to go revisit each one of my catalogs again. And now that we've reviewed our vendors, we're going to use the button here to say set vendors, and we're going to assign some vendors to each one of these parts that we've just brought in. And this particular one, I know that I'm assembling that myself, so I'm going to assign that as in-house. Some of these other parts come from, you know, maybe this one comes from my molding house, and I'm going to, and again, I'm just assigning some vendors right now for the purpose of, you can use type ahead. I'm going to get this from ABC Machine, and this is sort of for the purpose of the demonstration. And I know that, you know, a couple of these things probably might come from, and maybe I get this washer, maybe this comes from Grainger. That would make it a little more sense. So let's go ahead and assign that to there to Grainger. Okay, so there's our Inventor items, and we've assigned some vendors. Let's jump over to hardware, and let's do the same thing. We're going to set this up for hardware, and keep in mind we only do this once. I'm taking you through this process as if this was your first time using OpenBOM. Once all these vendors and things are assigned, you never need to do this in the future unless they change. So, okay, we've assigned vendors for vendors, quantities, and costs for the screws. We've done the same thing for all the other items that we brought over from Inventor. Our bill of material is really starting to look good. And what's the next step? We're going to move on to lesson 5. Let's create a planning or an order BOM, and let's create some POs. So the order BOM process is right here. I'm kind of an old engineer. We used to call this a planning BOM. This is where we take an order for, excuse me, we just got an order for 67 of these fork assemblies. And these came from Steve's Bites. Okay. So now's where OpenBOM really starts to bring the power. We've got this order BOM. We're going to open that. And right now what we're doing is we're calculating based on the quantity on hand and the quantity required to build 67 of these fork assemblies. We're saying, look, here's what you have. Here's what's required. You've got a quantity gap here of 56. So these numbers down here in quantity gap are the amounts that I need to order. And you spend a little time reviewing this, but typically right here, I go straight to create update purchase orders, single button click, review the purchase order list down here. And we see, hey, look, here's here's the PO that I need to send to Grainger. What does that look like? All right, that's what I expected. It's got the washer, some hardware. Let's do it from our hardware catalog. I can shoot this out, and there's a lot of information here, but I can shoot this out with a few pieces of information that I might need to a PDF or an Excel. And there we go. So in about 20 minutes, and this was even doing a lot of legwork that we wouldn't have to repeat, in other words, setting up vendors and costs and things. In less than 20 minutes, I've got a PO that I can send to Grainger for exactly what I need. And likewise, we can do that for all of the other, and by the way, I can send this to QuickBooks or NetSuite as well if I'm running those integrations. And I can do the same for all the other POs that I've created. Here's the one for the molding shop. Here's the one that goes out to the machine shop. So, so that takes us through, getting down, creating POs, and and exporting them. So I'm at about the 25-minute mark. So I want to pause here and just check again to see, if we've got any questions. Yes, you can. The question is, can we modify what goes on the purchase order? The answer is yes, and you can do that in your profile right here. So I can set up, company logo and my own logo and things that go there, and this is where you would make those changes. Okay. Okay, hang on. Okay, thanks. And then finally, I'd like to circle back right now and talk about that template setting just a little bit. We're gonna get back to our bike BOM, and perhaps I've got some other designs in Inventor for the rest of my bicycle. And since I've done all this work setting up my columns and catalogs and all those kinds of things, I'd really like to say that next time I build a BOM from Inventor, I'd like to have that automated a little bit. And the way we do that is right up here, save as template. And I'm going to call this my bike BOM. And I'm going to choose some settings here. You can look at the video for a lot more details, but generally this says, hey, remember what catalogs I'm using. Remember what formulas I've defined. Fantastic. So now to circle back here to Inventor, when I set up my OpenBOM settings in Inventor, I'm going to choose my bike BOM template, which we literally just created. And the next time I create a new bill of material from here, it will come through with much of that work that we just did predefined. So I hope everyone finds that useful. Like I said, we will send out a recording of this as well as the slide deck. I'll check to make sure that I'm not using any proprietary information here, and I'll try to share a zip or pack and go of this data set that you can help you through as well. Thank you all for listening. I hope you join me next week, and I do look forward to your questions at support@openbom.com.